Welcome to another video, guys. So today we're going to be installing this Snow Performance methanol injection kit on a Mustang. It's going to go on this Mustang right here, and the main thing is to figure out mostly where the tank and pump is going to be placed in the trunk, just because there's no room inside of the engine bay. Together with that, we're going to set up the controller, which is this gauge here, with a bunch of wires, which we have to figure out where to run the line that goes all the way from the trunk to the front, and everything in between that. In addition to that, then we're going to be doing these gauges here, which is a wideband air fuel ratio gauge and a temperature gauge. So those will kind of be after we do the Snow Performance methanol injection kit. So stay tuned. I'm gonna try to be as sterile as I can on the installation, and then what I'm gonna get started with here now is cutting a template out of cardboard, just so I know kind of where to mount that reservoir, because I think I'm gonna build something out of metal. We'll see how that works out, but I'm gonna cut this out and then measure in the car and see how it looks. Alright, so I went ahead and cut this template out of cardboard. You know, just cardboard, that way you can cut or, you know, change it or anything, and then once you're kind of happy, then you can cut it out of metal. This is the piece that I cut out of metal. You know, I just transfer over from my template. I drew where I was gonna have it bent. So this is, I'm gonna say, probably about a 1/16 of an inch, a little bit thicker metal. I'm not sure what the gauge is, but I cut it with my plasma cutter, and then I did kind of cut a few kind of strips here where I was going to bend and make it easier. I'm going to weld these back, and I drilled some holes for the mount, so let me show you. Now this is going to depend on your vehicle. If you have room to mount this kit inside of your engine bay, then you can do it there. A lot of people mount the or use the windshield washer reservoir as the reservoir for the Snow Performance instead of putting their own kit. So there's different ideas. This is just what I came out with. So this is going to mount right over here. There's a couple of studs there for the trunk latch, so I'm gonna mount it to there, and then with that being there, the reservoir is gonna go right here. The pump's gonna mount from the bottom right underneath, and so that's gonna hold it in there. You know, kind of keep it separate. He wanted to mount it where the spare tire goes, which, you know, that's okay, but this car does have the airlift system in here, and when I did that system, as you can see, the only thing that you see in the trunk here, you have all the room in the trunk. The only thing in there is that tank. You know, back there, I did a custom sub box, so there's a subwoofer in there, and then the compressor is right in there. But you can still lift up your mat here, get to your spare tire if you need it. You know, you never know when you'll need it. And so instead of getting rid of the spare tire, I figured that, you know, do this bracket here. It's still going to be out of the way here on the side, so, you know, whatever he needs to put in here on the trunk, there's still room in here. He can still lift up this piece and get the spare tire if he needs to. So, you know, that's just an idea. Obviously, you know, everyone's going to be different on what exactly they want to do with that. So I'm going to massage this bracket a little bit here. Like I said, the pump is going to go right under here, mounted right here, and the reservoir is going to go right in here. And this is going to put the reservoir right pretty much level on the top of the trunk, where, you know, you can get to the cap easy. But I'm going to, you know, clean up this bracket here a little bit, cut a little bit here off the back, and just grind it down and get it ready for some paint. I am gonna put the screws for the pump here on top, and I'm gonna weld them, and that way you don't have to be holding it with the wrench. And then the nuts for the reservoir here, I'm gonna weld the nuts to the back, and also that way you can just screw in the reservoir on there. You don't have to hold the nuts on the back. So that's what I'm gonna do next. And then once I get that done, I will start by, I do have to run that hose all the way in, so I'm gonna have to take the you know, the little trim here on the bottom off. We're gonna run the small hose here on the inside, you know, where it's not gonna get pinched or anything. That's where I ran the airlift line as well. So we're gonna do the same thing. I'll probably have to take that bottom seat down off, and then the other thing that we're gonna have to do once we do that is start taking the steering column plastic pieces off to mount that gauge and everything on there. So once I get to that point, I'll show you guys what I'm doing. All right, so this is the finished bracket here. I just went ahead and, you know, gave it a little spray paint of black. So as you can see, I did weld the nuts here on the back, so that way I can just, you know, screw in the reservoir from the front. And then I put this the bolts, I welded them on top. Also just that way we just put the nut on the bottom. So here on the car, this is gonna go right in there like that, and then so I'm gonna bolt it on like so, and the if I can get that in there, the pump's gonna go right on the bottom here. So the pump will be mounted like that. I just gotta put the nuts there. I did go ahead and do the low level sensor on here, so you do have to drill a hole with the strip drill bit and put the sensor through the inside of the tank and then bolt it down. And that's just lets you know when the level of the methanol is, you know, lower than, I guess, a third. That way you know you need to fill it. So next I'm gonna just go ahead and figure out the plumbing for this. Pretty much I think this one of these goes to ground, so I'm just gonna ground it here to the bracket, to the bolt on top. So I got to do an eyelid here. Same with the pump. The pump, you know, you get your 12 bolts and then you get a ground, which is black here. So I'm gonna ground it to the same spot here, probably to the bolt, like I said, on top here. That way it's just right there. That's pretty much as far as that is concerned. On the inside, I was figuring out the gauge here. So I did show you the different gauges I'm putting on here. And so we're taking this temperature one off and this air fuel ratio one off and putting an odometer one. So I done this a while back. So everything is ran here. All the wiring goes to the back here. And then this one, which is the one for the Snow Performance, it actually just sits on top of here. You don't have to replace the factory piece. This goes on top of it. So next I'm gonna take this bezel off. You just have to take a little, pull the headlight switch off, take a little Allen bolt here, loosen it, take this off, and then this one just has the 2 bolts here on top, and you just clip it off. I'm gonna do that way I can run the wires for this right behind there. And then most of these wires are I am gonna tie into the existing gauges, just because they're, you know, key on, which gauges have that already. There's a ground, which gauges have that already. I know one of these, I think the green, goes to the pump, so I'm gonna have to run that all the way back. And then the purple one goes to the sensor, so I have to run both of those back. Other than that, all these are, I'm pretty sure they're all pretty much going to be hooked up here. One of these might be, you know, power at all times. I'll have to double check the instructions, but which the gauges, I believe one, they have a power on constant and then a key on. I think that's pretty much it, but you know, I'll show you once I'm doing that wiring. It's going to be a lot of wiring in here, as far as, you know, it seems like a lot, but once I get it kind of start separating, it shouldn't be that bad. The new gauges, same thing. I mean, I'm just going to reconnect the wiring, so it should be pretty straightforward. The only difference is the new air fuel ratio gauge. You do have to run the L2, the wiring to the L2 sensor. This one has a wire, but it's only one wire, I think. So it's pretty simple design on this one. That's why it doesn't really work. The new one has kind of like a bigger harness, so I'll have to figure that out because it's a little bit thicker to round it where I ran these through the firewall. So we'll see where we can run it through, but other than that, I'm gonna go ahead and get started mounting that reservoir and the pump, and then we'll go ahead and dive into all the wiring pretty much, and then, you know, we'll go from there. Alright, so I got the pump mounted. This is how it's gonna go. Reservoir mounted. I got some washers there on the bolts. I did the sensor ground here to this bolt. The pump ground is going to be installed to the top bolt that mounts pretty much to the body up here. So I got this all set up, and then, you know, the line's just right there from the reservoir to the pump. I do have to give it some time for the glue to set. So per the instructions, it says not to use any thread sealant on any of these threads because the methanol will eat through the thread sealant. So they include this tube of super strength adhesive that you put on the threads. Once it's dry, it says to put some water, just make sure it's not leaking. I assume if it leaks, then, you know, I have to take it off and redo it again, get some more of this glue in there. So what I'm going to do in the meantime, I already put the other connector here on the other side, but I'm not going to connect anything to it. I'm going to go ahead and mount this to the trunk, get the bolts off the trunk now, and then I'm going to start taking the seat off and, you know, the door seal off to run the hose that's going to go from here all the way to the front of the car. Alright, so there's the mounted reservoir with the pump there on the bottom. So I'm just going to start plumbing everything. So, you know, you can get to your cap here, take it off, fill it. You keep your cap back on there. And the trunk clears the cap here, so you're good to go there. And that's even though he has this little cover here, which sticks out about 1/2 inch lower. If you just have your regular trunk, then you don't have no problem with that interfering. So up to the taking the seat off and then the sill plate. Alright, so this is where we're at so far. I did take the instrument cluster out. Once again, you get a little Allen wrench, take the... Well, and actually this one is because we have the billet one that you do an Allen wrench. The factory one just has a little metal tab on the back that you push towards the handle and then you pull it out. 2 screws up here on top. So one up here, and then you pull this one out. And then the dash has 4 torque screws. You tilt it in and do the plugs on the bottom, and then you take it out. So I did mount the dash or the gauge here. It's kind of thrown on here, so I still have to pretty much bolt it down, or not bolt it down. It's some clips that go in there, but Alright, so I made some progress here with the installation. I got the lead for the air fuel ratio sensor fed through the grommet here. It's hard to see, but it's the grommet that's in here. I also fed the pigtail for the sensor, for the temperature sensor. Put it on this wire loom and run it all the way up here, the connector. So I just got to change out the sensor here. I'll still kind of tight this up once it's done. And then on the inside, I pretty much ran all the new gauges. As you can kind of see on that time lapse there. But all the gauges are run in here. I'm just, they're all in there. I'm just waiting on these 2 wires are for the data log cable. So I'm gonna hook those up, and I think we're gonna do a small, just pull it out through here. So data log's gonna come out through here. This gauge here, same thing, it's already run in there. We have the yellow wires not used. We have the I have the black ground already hooked up. purple and green. I picked up some wire, so I'm gonna run that all the way to the pump on the back, and then we just have to run the red to a key on power. And I'm not gonna tee this off to the gauges because this is a lower gauge cable that I'm used in here. So I'm gonna find a key on power source for this that's, you know, same equal thickness. All right, so this is all taken care of now. I did go ahead and run that data logging cable in here, and I left it here because this is where he keeps this controller. So, you know, data logging cable's here. If he doesn't want to connect it, you know, just put it under the dash mat. But I'm pushing unnecessary buttons here. But this is all set. Gauges are done. This is what it looks like. So you got the Snow Performance one. This still has to be set up. I really don't know the ins and outs of it, but it has instructions how to set it up, when to perch and all that. We got the temperature, which is reading, and then the wideband, which I already started the car. It does work good. So everything, this is a little bit hard to get back. This back piece, I should have filmed it, but what I did is I put it in through this side and just kind of squeeze it in the back, and that worked pretty good. And then I just run all the cables for the air fuel ratio down here. It's, you know, to the sensor. Now if you have a factory car, you do have to remember you have to weld a bung to it. They do sell some that are kind of, they have like a big old hose clamp that you clamp to there with the gasket, but I don't know how durable that would be. So if you don't know how to weld, maybe, you know, get that bung welded before you get it installed. But just run the cable down there, connect it, make sure it's not touching anything. And then I, you know, just put a couple of zip ties on this cable here, tucked it all in to that sensor for the intercooler temperature. That's pretty much it at this point. We still have a couple things to finish. We got the tank here. There's no leaks. Already checked that. And we already checked the perch. So this is the little, you know, nozzle. I am waiting on the piece that, since this is really thin plastic, it's like two nuts with the hole in the middle with the threads for this. So waiting on that to install that. So hopefully that'll get in tomorrow, and then that'll be the final thing and be ready to go. All right, and that's pretty much the end of the install. So this is the plastic piece that, you know, it has a nut on the other side, just to make it a little bit, you know, more threads for the nozzle. Went ahead and put it right next to the intake, which they say, you know, within 6 inches of the throttle body. And, you know, we got the hose there. So everything's good to go. Pretty basic install. The hardest part is running your hoses and all your wires. So everything came out pretty good, you know, in the trunk and everything, nothing leaking. And then the gauge up front, so that looks pretty nice. Next step from there is just pretty much to get it settled, you know, dialed in, how much you want to spray, when you want it to spray, things like that. So, you know, you kind of have to figure that out yourself. If you want it to spray at how many pounds of boost, so on and so forth. So thank you for watching. You know, if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave any comments. See you in the next one.